with Madame Aguar Fernandez, the new Director of Health Directorate at DG Research and Innovation. And we are here as a national contact point because we would like to ask her a few questions which can be useful to our researchers in Europe to better impact the market and to better impact the society, which is waiting for the results of the project they are making. So I would like to pose you a few questions, but of course, total freedom in the answer. We would like to start from your vision and your strategic direction you think that will be put in place by your directorate in the coming years.
Okay, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here today, having the opportunity to share a few thoughts, few personal thoughts on the matter. And I should start by saying something. From the administration point of view, I'm not director for health. My directorate is called People, Health and Society. And I wanted to make that comment because while we are going to talk today mostly about the cluster 1, the health research, and all of these things, I think it is pretty important and I'm privileged to be in this position. Why do I say that? Because I think that one of the parts where I feel very strong about is that health research is first and foremost for the European citizens, for people. So that's the center of, as I see, of our work. Citizens, European citizens and patients, well-being, health, and quality of life. And this is why I think that I feel personally very privileged, because health is one of the important factors, but also the combination of being responsible for things, and I will come to that later on, dealing with societal aspects makes it even more important. So, again, health doesn't exist in the void. Health is a pervasive, if you wish, policy area. Health in all policies, it's a motto that our colleagues in working in DG Santé are often using. And if you think about that, it's important for competitiveness. It's important for preparedness. Think about COVID, for example. It's important for security, and it's important for social cohesion. So those are things that are, elements that we think are important. And I want to come particularly back to a word that I have just mentioned, competitiveness. Competitiveness is today very high in the agenda of Europe for a variety of reasons. The international landscape has changed dramatically. It is not what it used to be 5 years ago. And things like basically sovereignty or security of access, those are things that are quite central. So competitiveness of the health industry is pretty important. It is important for us as a society. There's a lot of workforce that is linked to health or to the health industry, and as well they are delivering health companies or health sector in Europe is delivering important products for our citizens. So that is also one of the areas that I think it is central in the activities that we have. So working in DG Research gives me the privilege to make sure that our research priorities are aligned to these needs of the citizens, but also to the needs of the society as such. And if you would ask me what is my ultimate objective or vision or goal, is to translate this into really solutions that benefit the patients. Things that come to the market and then really are changing the life of our citizens. That is how we see that. And the health cluster is a key element of that.
So can we also briefly talk about the health research priorities and what you see as critical, and what are you preparing for the next years in terms of research plans? Can you highlight for our researchers the main policy issues that you're tackling with our work programs and all the health-related plans from the European Commission?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think that I will start by perhaps citing something that has been mentioned a number of times by the people doing policy at the highest level. There have been a couple of reports, the Draghi report and the Letta report, that have highlighted that Europe cannot afford to not being competitive. Europe has to reinforce this competitiveness because at the end of the day, this is important for us as continent, as society. And it is particularly interesting that one of the areas where this lagging behind in competitiveness has been pointed out is in life sciences, on the health domain, but more on the biotech sphere. So those have been areas that have been particularly put as an example where if Europe is capable of really finishing the innovation journey and getting regulatory landscape that is more innovation friendly and is coming to defragmenting this fragmented internal market, it's going to be a huge benefit for us as society. Not only the access to innovative products, but also a wealth creating driver. So those are things that have been put on the table more than a year ago. And in response to that, we in DG Research have been materializing these efforts into what we presented in July, the life sciences strategy. So life sciences strategy, which we have created, talking to everyone around the table, and not only in the Commission, but beyond that, is basically an attempt to address all these bottlenecks and hurdles that are now not helping us to make the most of all the innovation and all the competitiveness that could be created in this biotech domain. And I want to refer to biotech because the vast majority of examples have been put from the health domain, but there are other many applications that go beyond that. But, let me give a specific example. We know that our researchers are suffering quite a lot when it comes to research done on the clinical trials domain. Why? Because despite that there is, European regulation, there are still some hurdles in the implementation, and they find it difficult, particularly for clinical trials that are sponsored by academia, not by big companies. So this is one of the actions where, with the umbrella of this life sciences strategy, it's going to be addressed, both with regulatory action and also non-regulatory actions. So there is in this strategy a number of flagship, a number of activities or initiatives where we're trying to really go beyond these hurdles and support our researchers, our communities to be more efficient into their work. This is the underlying idea. And so for these, for example, in the life sciences strategy, I want to believe, please, that our researchers have heard of the Biotech Act. So the Biotech Act is one of the flagships of the life sciences strategy, where we have presented a proposal, where they of course discuss with the member states, but we have presented a proposal that includes regulatory and non-regulatory activities or initiatives, let me put it so. I think that it's fair to say that in our last couple of years in the work programs 26 and 27, there is a strong alignment for activities that are going in that direction, how to materialize the benefits of biotech and, more broadly speaking, of life sciences into how to make this happen together or in line with the strategy of the life sciences strategy.
We go with the last question to you, and it's really more related to the role of national contact points for Horizon Europe, because we also need some inspiration and some directions from our director. I think it's a very important occasion. So what I want to ask you is, looking ahead in these years, coming years, what advice you can give to us in the implementation of our work, as we also have a role at national level? How would you see us, where we can help, where we can support the European Commission?
Well, the first thing is, I'm not going to give you an advice. The first thing I will do is I will thank you. I will thank you for your work, because it's very hard work. You know very, very, very well, better than sometimes than anybody else in the world, how you are there placed in a unique position to support and help our research community, to decode, to facilitate, to make them aware of opportunities, but also to somehow enrich the European landscape with also new participants. So that is a very important role, and I want to thank you for that. That is one of the ways I see that you're, somehow helping and supporting Europe, because at the end of the day, that's part of, of the whole ecosystem. That's one of the things. The second thing that I want to thank you for, and it's something I want to stress, is for being a very efficient way for us to communicate. And I come back to what I have said of decoding. You are really a big support in communication of the framework policies, research policies, research initiatives, research perhaps new novelties or things that are in the make. So that is quite important, and it's a two-way communication, because you translate sometimes what we are aiming for and we want to achieve into messages that reach out really at the heart of the researchers, and then you're able to make them perhaps communicate with us in a very effective way. You're also and finally, I want to thank you and for something that maybe you're not so aware of, but I think it is pretty important in these days where there are all sorts of theories, conspiration theories and the like, and particularly when science is being put into question, where scientific evidence, which should be the base of EU policies, is perhaps not as valued as it used to be. I think that you have an important role to play, because in a way or another, as I said, scientific evidence is the base of European policies. And you must help us also in our role or our endeavor of making sure that this stays like this. This is one of the messages that we have in Choose Europe. So if we want to
then end this beautiful conversation by saying thank you on behalf of the National Contact Point for Cluster Health. Really, thank you for your time, and maybe just a sign, which is not very common anymore, like shaking of hands to our director. Thank you.
Why not?
Thank you. We are very proud to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and I take it that you're the ambassador, but in a way, I am just shaking the hands of all the NCPs that are working very hard to make sure that the Horizon Europe message goes really and reaches every one of our researchers out there. So thank you for that work.